Hi, good evening, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. I'd like to welcome everyone and call the meeting to order. We're just coming out of an executive session, and we start all of our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'll share the reading of the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Is there anyone that would like to speak for public comment, either in studio? We do have some people in studio, which I always love, and then anyone on Zoom. So we'll do anyone in studio first. Could just come up to the table. You're welcome.
Sorry about the computer. I didn't get to a printer on time.
That's okay. I'm using a crumpled up piece of paper.
I would prefer that. All right. Hello, everyone. Am I close enough? I'm Jessica Cummings, president of the Wakefield Educational Association. I'm also a resident here in Wakefield with 4 children currently in our public school system. I'm here tonight to share this public forum with you for just a minute or two because, as you know, we simply don't have one of this scale. The teachers and our Unit A support staff wanted to make it known to the community that we've been working without a contract since September 1st, hence the standouts before school. I would like to thank all the teachers that came out to help us communicate this status. I would particularly like to thank the parents and students who joined them as well. That support cannot be quantified. Thank you to members of this committee for meeting with us a number of times over the summer in an effort to finalize a contract for this and the next 2 school years. Both groups spent countless hours at work, and I do believe that should be recognized. Since the start of this calendar year, as far back as February, a good amount of proposals and counters have been exchanged. While we have made some progress in certain areas, the question of our time and compensation for that time remains. We are contracted workers who already work well outside our designated contract hours. Please acknowledge this. I ask that you hear us when we say our time is of great value to us. Many, dare I say most of us, work multiple jobs while also holding multiple degrees. Please understand this. We run successful clubs, student trips, and organize events such as our student concerts without compensation. For the love of our students, we have always kept doing it anyway. Please finally acknowledge this with more than just words. We too worked while our schools were shut down. We embraced very new ways of reaching our students. We taught in masks. We worked the reopening of schools with unprecedented schedules and with students who were experiencing a very direct impact of COVID isolation policies. And that's okay. We should do our work always to the best of our abilities and at all times. But please acknowledge this in addition to the acknowledgement of administrative work during that time. Hear us now, like any other worker across our country and beyond. We would like a fair and equitable raise that reflects our work and our time as they stand, one that reflects the current economy, what other communities have provided for their teachers, and what this community has offered our other valued departments. We look forward to seeing you again at the table on November 1st.
Thank you, Jess. Anyone else in studio? No. On Zoom? Oh, Lauren's here. But for public comment, anyone on Zoom? We're good. Okay. Thank you. Lauren, are you on? I don't know which box you're in.
Bottom right.
Okay. Hi, Lauren. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. So, do you have an update, a student advisory council update?
Yes, I do have some updates. Sorry for the noise. I'm at work right now, so.
It's okay. We can't even hear it.
This Sunday, the marching band received a perfect score at their competition in Norwood. And on Thursday, we're gonna leave for our Bands of America regional competition at Rutgers University, and we'll be competing on Saturday against 19 other bands from across the country. And on Wednesday night, we have Fright Night at 7 o'clock in the Savings Bank Theater. And Thursday is the Pumpkins on the Plaza event at the BB Library.
Is there a band, something on Wednesday night I think I saw too?
Yes, Wednesday night at the at Landrigan Field, we're having a family and friends performance. So there's no fee to get in, and we'll be performing our entire show.
Great. We look forward to that.
Yes, thank you.
Is there anything else? Does anyone have any questions for Lauren?
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks so much.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Can I just,
Oh.
Amy? Can I just say, Lauren? I just want to commend you on your leadership of the band this year. It's been so great to see you sort of on the podium, conducting. It's just going to be so exciting to sort of to conduct this show. It's super vibrant. It's a fantastic show, and I just can't imagine how sort of elated you have to be to get up in front of those kids, being one of them previously, and conduct them through the process and through all of the awards. So just congratulations to you, to everyone else, like regardless of awards and whatever, you guys put it out there 100% every time. So just thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a really great opportunity to be able to lead this band through such a great season this year. So, thank you.
It's great.
Great. Do we have a consent agenda?
You're on mute, Stephen.
Was he talking? I
Yeah.
can't even see.
All right. I think it takes 4 years to teach for this. So move that the school committee approve the minutes of the October 16th, 2023 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the October 16th, 2023 school committee student services subcommittee meeting and minutes of the October 17th, 2023 school committee policy and communications subcommittee meeting as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Because Stephen's on Zoom, we have to do a roll call vote. Judy?
Ms. Lehman,
Yes?
Mr. Ingles,
Yes,
I can't tell if Mr. Markham is there or not.
he's not.
Okay. Mr. Fontanella,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Colleran,
Yes.
and Dr. Piscadlo, is he?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I know.
Okay.
So we welcome. Good evening, everybody. We're welcoming a student guest this evening, special guest actually, and we're really looking forward to having her. She's actually making her way to the studio now. Her name is Leah Ellis, and she'll be joined by her mom and also her principal, Meg Webb. So they're just making their way down now, I believe. Thanks, Aaron. What's that? I hope she's here. Yeah.
Hi.
How are you? Hi, Jack. Hi, Leah.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi, Miss Webb.
Hi.
How are you?
Are you ready for us?
We are.
Yes.
We
You
are.
won't hear
We're
much from
super
me. I just get to be the
excited.
lucky person to introduce Leah Ellis and Jack Ellis, who are two amazing students at the Galvin. They're also brother and sister. And Leah is here to talk a little bit about a little entrepreneurial work she's been doing and some design she's been doing. So Leah, do you want to talk about your hats?
Meg, can you move the mic over?
And actually, maybe start by telling us, did you design the hat?
Yeah, I designed the hat, and I love all these colors, so I chose to put them on the hat, and I colored the what's it called
The
again?
pom-pom?
The pom pom
Oh, you
too.
colored it? You did, yeah. And you designed it as part of, do you remember the organization?
Love your melon.
Love Your Melon, which is kind of a cool name. And what do they raise money for?
Dana Farber.
Awesome. Awesome. So many of us in the community were lucky enough to get in before the hats sold out because they have completely sold out twice.
Yeah.
Yes. And the proceeds are all going to Dana Farber, which is pretty incredible. So Leah wanted to come and answer any questions you have about her design, right, and about what she's raising money for, or about her experience in Wakefield Public Schools. And I'm sure Jack could chime in as well, as the older brother.
Well, thank you for coming. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
So, Leah, do you know how many hats were sold? Because I've been on the waiting list for a while, and I just got off, so I was very excited.
Like 400 or something.
Wow.
Amazing, amazing. And so I think based on your design and based on the response, I think you've raised quite a bit of money. So I think we want to thank you for that and applaud you for both an amazing design and also having the courage to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And what grade are you in?
6th.
You're in 6th grade? And it's Jack? Wait, what's your first?
I'm in 8th grade.
You're in 8th grade? Wow.
And I believe that they're both proud alums of Greenwood, yes? Both of you? Yeah.
I
I
think
know
your
his back is
principal
up there.
might
And
be
I
there.
want to make sure she got her shout out.
I liked Greenwood.
So do you like the Greenwood better or the Galvin?
So
I think I
So-
liked Greenwood better.
so
Megan, she's honest.
so Leah, what you can't see is your principal. So Principal Blacker's online cheering. So when you said Greenwood, she was just cheering for you. She was waving, trying to get your attention. And so yeah, so that's great. So we're really, really happy that you were able to come out and share a little bit. It's great to meet you in person. Again, I've seen just so much email traffic, and somebody bought a few extra hats. I can share this. Someone bought a few extra hats. So when you sold out, someone had shared, the nurse at Greenwood shared, I bought a few extra, and I think got hundreds of emails. Do you have those extra hats? So I do know they're so popular. So I want to thank you again.
Another fun fact is that some of Leah's classmates wrote to me, almost like petition style, to lift the no hat rule for certain days so that all of the students could wear Leah's hat in support of Leah and the cause that she's raising money for. So I allowed it And so now we see lots of beanies around school. Mine hasn't come in yet, but I'll be joining them.
Is there a
joining them
day
as well.
coming up that's going to happen, or has it already?
We'll have an official day once everyone has their hats, who was able to get one. But now we just allow it kind of as it happens, which is a celebration in itself, I would say, at the
I
Galvin.
think the same thing might be happening at Greenwood.
I would bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, look. Yeah. So Principal Blacker's rocking one of those hats right now. So awesome.
Did you have a question, Kevin?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I love winter hats because I share a characteristic with Dr. Lyons. We don't have kind of natural head coverings when it gets cold out, so I was eyeing yours, and it looks great. Can you tell us how you said you liked the color? So that was kind of how you picked that. Like, what was the design process? How'd you know what it was gonna look like, and how'd you do that?
I just thought of like a good design, and I thought of like stripes, and then I drew a few stripes and saw some color.
That's awesome.
And I liked sparkles because
I noticed the sparkles.
I love sparkles
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Well, great job with that. If there is a third printing of them or making of them,
Yes.
I could be sporting along with Dr. Lyons. So thank you. It was great. I love it.
I think you were on the news. And did I hear a story about how the love, the E, did you run? Do you want to share that?
Sure. Well, usually when I'm writing, I write, I don't go back far enough. So, when I wrote it, I did love, and then, by the end, I didn't have enough space, so I did the E a little down, and that's how they wrote it on.
Yeah. Which makes it really unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So speaking of writing, we were going to have this thing called Town Day, but it never happened because of the weather, of course. But I have this sign made, and it says, inspire the love of learning, right? And the activity was students were going to come by and sign it. Well, I would like you to be the first person to sign that. Would you do that for me? Well, for us, I'm sorry. I have some markers, and then Jack can sign it. And any teachers are welcome. No parents, though, because they don't go to the school. So it has to be students and teachers. Do you mind?
Sure.
We'll put it right on the table. I have a couple different colors. And then will you sign it too, Jack? Sure. Put your name, you can what year you're going to graduate, you can write whatever you want. Pick whatever color you like. Thank you. Miss Webb can sign it. Anyone over here, and the teachers, I would love that. So we want to fill it up, and then it's going to live in the superintendent's office.
Good
job, guys.
My last name.
Thank
Okay.
you.
What an honor. The first ones.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you.
Should we
Thanks for having us.
I don't. Do you want to take a picture with Leah and
Yeah.
Meg?
Do you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I'll take it.
Thank you.
This is bigger than the news, right?
The guy's sitting like strangely.
You all want to be in the picture? Neil, you're in there too.
Your photo bombing.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, great job.
Thank you to our parents for your
Bye, thank you. Thank you for having us.
What's that? Oh, she's lovely.
Is Beth here?
So, excuse me, Ian, do we know if Miss Elsowitz is in the outer space?
She is. I saw her. Whatever.
Great.
Do you want to do it again?
What's that?
Do you want me
That would be great. I think Ian's grabbing her.
You said outer space. So I was like outer space.
No, in the outer. I meant the outer room. I don't.
It's been a long day.
Amy, did the Ellises leave already?
They just left.
Oh, did
Okay.
you have a question? I forgot.
No, I was just gonna. No, that's okay. I was just gonna let Leah know that like they're a hot commodity in our house, so we had to get more than one because there was a thing between mom and daughter about the colors. But that's okay. I can communicate externally.
Sorry.
That's
Tiffany.
okay. This is the price of being in the box.
Hello.
Oh,
How are you?
With permission of the chair, can I go out and join
Yeah,
Bev at the table?
go
I think it
ahead.
might be easier for me.
Oh, do you want me to get up?
It's like you're coming in once a month now. What are you doing in November?
This is this.
So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm usually not on this side of the table. I thought it'd be easier for me to come out and to present this award. This award comes from Seth Moulton's office, and Congressman Moulton, every year they have a service award for volunteers on the North Shore who demonstrate a commitment outside to service outside of their regularly assigned duties in their work. The award is named after Reverend Peter J. Gomes. It is given to a person who exemplifies the qualities of integrity, compassion, and a commitment to the community. And so it is. We learned about a week ago that Bev received this award. She was nominated in the summer, and we hadn't heard anything, and we just heard that she had received the award. They were presenting it. Seth Moulton was presenting it, and Bev couldn't make it due to a family commitment. So I thought that it would be great for her to come here. Seth Moulton's office sent us the award, and so Bev, it's my pleasure to present to you. I don't know anyone who's really more deserving, right?
Thank you.
And so we just love you, right? And so this award is.
Before you take it back.
So it's our pleasure to present this to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for nominating me. Beautiful.
So
We have some flowers for you too. And you can sign the sign.
Yeah, that's true.
So while Bev is signing the sign, I will, I don't want to embarrass her too much, but Bev does so many things that she never talks about, right? And so her classroom is open every afternoon for students that have left her program to come back and spend time there. You'll see her van parked in front, and she's there from early in the morning off until 6 or 7 at night every single day. One of the primary reasons that Bev was nominated for this award was not only for her work in school, but especially outside of school. Bev is involved with feeding families over the holidays for people that are having difficulty making ends meet. She does an amazing job with the high set program, which is work done with students that just haven't accrued or gotten enough credits, accumulated enough credits to graduate from high school. So it's formally called the GED. I believe Bev's success rate is it's
Pretty high.
I think it's 100%, right? And
But I
so
work with good staff that's very successful.
and this is always the response. It's a good staff, it's great kids, and so again, I feel like we can't thank you enough. This is a small recognition.
I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. Thank
so
you for
thank
coming
you.
out tonight.
Congratulations.
Do you want to take a picture?
Aw.
We'll do all the fun stuff when we talk about MCAS.
MCAS is fun.
You want to introduce?
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Next up, I can turn it over to Kara, who's going to start presenting our MCAS results for the district.
You should have something else in the middle. No, happy to transition over. So we have a pretty big group with us tonight. I think just to capture the team effort that it does take, from the teachers and the paras and the support staff of the buildings to our curriculum leadership team, our principals, we're all really working together towards the same goal, which is a nice thing. So we have a lot of people here tonight. I did also want to reference that while we're mainly talking about MCAS tonight, we're also going to reference, and we link to the presentation, our school improvement plans, just to kind of merge those two presentations into one. So I'll start with who's here tonight. Everyone is zooming in. For our curriculum coordinators, so this year for our secondary math curriculum coordinator position, we created an interim plan, and I asked Kim and Lisa to be here tonight just to really introduce them to all of you and just to thank them for the exceptional work they're doing as interim coordinators. Kim Connolly is on the call. Kim, if you can just wave so they can see who you are. She's doing the 9 through 12 math curriculum coordination in addition to teaching. And then I'll just jump down to keep it aligned. Lisa Tibbetts is here. She's doing the Galvin curriculum coordination along with teaching. So thank you for being here tonight for support. We also have Valerie Drynan, our K through 4 humanities curriculum coordinator. And we have Joanne Marks, our 5 through 12 science, technology, engineering curriculum coordinator. And Margaret Messier is here, our 5 to 12 ELA curriculum coordinator. And Lindsay Mosca is here, our K to 4 STEM curriculum coordinator. Our principals are also here tonight. As I mentioned, they'll be referencing their school improvement plans as well as speaking to the action plans that we're working towards as a district in response to our MCAS data. So we have Tiffany back here from Greenwood, and we have Shannon Blacker from Doyle, Matt Carter from Woodville, TJ Liberty from Dolbear, Amy McLeod from the high school, Brian Schmidt from Walton, and I don't know if Meg Webb is still talking to the family and didn't hop on quite yet, but I know she'll be on soon, and then I know you already saw her, but she is here tonight too. So just to start us off, we always want to come back to this visual. It drives everything that we do in the district. Again, really trying to align, create systems, create cohesion, level to level. So it starts with our district instructional strategy, which we've reviewed with you this summer. And then our school improvement plans are aligned with that, as well as our professional development plan. And then we try to bring that down to the classroom level. We've done a lot of work working with teachers and doing group professional practice goals, student learning goals, focused on the initiatives that we have going on in the district. So that's been really successful the past couple of years and just created some nice consistency there. And then, of course, everything ultimately results in classroom practices that provide great outcomes for our students in terms of achievement. I'm going to pass this next slide over to Lindsay Mosca and Val Drinan. And Lindsay, before you start, we were talking, I was talking with the committee before we started. We're going to do questions along the way. If questions do pop up after every slide, just let the committee members just jump in as you go. Go ahead,
Great.
Lindsay.
That's awesome. So thank you guys for having us. I am excited to be, back talking about MCAS data in my annual appearance, at least for this purpose. And so I'm going to start by talking about what you need to know about MCAS 2023. Every year since I've started in Wakefield has been an unusual year or something different since I started in 2019. And so we kind of get to rehash this every year. So this year for the spring 2023 results is the first year of back-to-back full MCAS testing, 2022 to 2023 since before the pandemic. Because of that, so in 2020, we had no MCAS. In 2021, there was everyone except at the high school level, students took half MCAS tests. And then 2022 was a full assessment. And so then this year is the first back-to-back full assessments since 2019, which is incredible. And so this is the first year since 2019 that the Department of Education has issued accountability reports for the district. For the accountability reports, what this means is that the state sets district, school, and subgroup targets based on our prior year data. And they set those targets based on expected growth and expected improvement. So wherever the district was in 2022, they set targets for growth and improvement in the next year. And then schools are sort of graded on those accomplishments towards the targets set by the state, specific to that group's population. So schools receive an overall designation of one of the following, either requiring assistance or intervention or not requiring assistance or intervention, which feels really like only those two options. It's kind of coarse, but you'll see on the next slide. You ready for the next slide? Yep. That the Department of Ed also assigns some and talks about progress towards targets. And so you can see across our 6 schools, no schools are requiring assistance or intervention. And there's a reason listed, just as an example, like Dolber is not requiring assistance or intervention, meeting or exceeding all targets. The accountability percentile, that number all the way to the right, that places districts across the state in a 0 to 100 percentile, and so these percentile numbers are great results for Wakefield Public Schools. We're really in that top end. Lindsay, you're having a little bit of internet.
I was just going to say, Kara, I couldn't tell if that was me or Lindsay freezing, so I didn't want to jump in. If it was...
I think it's Lindsay. Yeah, Val, do you
I can add into what she was saying. Because her and I talked about this earlier. So
okay.
I can jump on here. So,
Thanks,
so what she was explaining there was, so all of our schools were designated as not requiring assistance or intervention, but each school has a particular reason for that. So she was giving the example of Dolbear there. So Dolbear was not requiring assistance or intervention because they were meeting or exceeding target. So just as she explained with the district accountability report, there are targets set for each subgroup, also for each content area. And so that's the same for each school as well. So each school gets their own accountability targets as well. And so the ratings and the reasons are based on the school accountability reports.
Thanks, Val. I think Kevin had a question on this side.
Yeah, so when you look at the last 2 columns, when you look at accountability percentile, does that mean, is that just like a base ranking from like 0 to 100, meaning 100 would be like the magical best school in the state versus 0? Like, is it a scale like that or no?
So, am I coming through okay? I'm not sure if my
You're good, Alan. You're good.
So, it's kind of like if you line up all of the schools in terms of their accountability scores over the last 2 years, from needing the most assistance to doing the best, that would be like the place in line that you are from 0 to 100.
Okay. So when you look at, so let's just look at 2 of these 2 schools, for example. So you look at the Dolbear and the high school. So the Dolbear has 84% progress toward improvement, right? And their school and the accountability percentile is a 61. And then you look at the high school, it's a 47% progress with 78%. So does that mean that the Dolbear has done a great job in trying to in moving up towards trying to meet those targets, and then that final place where they ended up is the 61 percentile?
Yeah, so Dolbear really met or exceeded their targets across the board with like all of their subpopulations in each of the content areas. You know, it was a really impressive year, and so that is where you get that 84% towards meeting those accountability targets. And then that 61 accountability percentile is a result of the prior year plus this year weighted for the accountability percentile. So those accountability percentiles are not just a singular year, it's
Gotcha.
a two. So it's a big improvement
Got it.
there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, then, I'm sorry, could then you speak to what, just following Kevin's example, then what happened at the high school? So they were, so this, just walk through that one, so.
Sure. It's not showing up on my screen, but I just pulled up the presentation. So at the high school, there that 47% progress towards targets and accountability percent out of 78 means that last year their progress towards improvement targets was higher.
Okay. Okay.
All right, we'll pass this next slide over to Doug.
Thank you. So I'm very pleased to report to anyone that might be watching and to the committee that the Walton School was recognized as a school of recognition, right, for high achievement and high growth, where they have exceeded targets. As part of the accountability reporting process each year, the Department of Education identifies a small number of schools of recognition that demonstrate this high achievement and high growth. Only 66 schools across the state were recognized. A little more than a third of the 66 were secondary schools. So really, we're looking at Walton as one of approximately 40 elementary schools in the state that were recognized in this way. And I think that that is it's an amazing achievement to be recognized in that space. And I think, you know, recognition is deserved to the teachers and students. Yeah.
Yeah, can I add to that? Yeah, and just in terms of what this means, like how do you get this? Like how do you achieve school of recognition? Like the grade 3 ELA scores, there was a 19% increase. And that might not sound like a lot, but that's a massive increase year over year. Like that means the grade 3 students in ELA at Dolbear like had almost a 20% increase, right? Not the same cohort of kids moving to grade 4, but like that. The grade 3 performance had
You
a
mean
huge
Dolbear or
increase.
Walton?
In Walton.
Yeah.
Did I say Dolbear?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sorry,
Dolbear.
TJ. I tried. I tried. And then even going to grade 4, there was a 12% increase in ELA, and math also, you know, was great as well. So, and you know, people might just throw those numbers out: 19% increase, 12% increase, but that really is impressive. So the ELA, what's going on is really great there.
This is the second time the school, Walton, has received this recognition.
Oh, wow.
And again, MCAS is important to us in regard to understanding how we're doing with our curriculum and how we're progressing. And we want to give the appropriate recognition to Walton here. But we also want to recognize the gains that our other schools have made as well.
That's a great segue because we're heading into our next section where we are going to talk about highlights. Each school absolutely has highlights that we want to bring forth tonight. The way we structure the presentation is to just talk about highlights and then overall areas of growth that will feed into the action plan. So I'll pass this back to Val and Lindsay to speak to the elementary highlights.
Thanks, Kara. Overall, in ELA, we had an increase in students that met or exceeded their exceeded expectations. So students that were scoring in the meeting and exceeding categories, and we reduced the achievement gap for high need students in grade 3. So what that means is the difference between all students and the high need students, and high needs encompasses special education, English language learners, socioeconomic status. So that group, we reduced the difference in scores between that group and the overall student population. Do you want to take over here, Lindsay?
Oh, sure. I mean, I will start by saying, while I may be a K-4 STEM coordinator right now, this is really the work of the teachers and the principals and Val, and I'm stepping in and not taking credit, just talking about it, because this was their work for the last few years. And so in math, every school met or exceeded all accountability targets for math. So that means in the accountability part we talked about earlier, that they were getting 3s or 4s as a score in each of those areas for all the accountability targets for math, including achievement and growth for all students and our lowest performing students. And so, really what we're seeing there is that the promises of having a universally designed curriculum that really meets the needs of our struggling learners and our high performers is showing in this data across the elementary schools. We also saw an improved achievement for high needs students over the state. And so compared to how we did in previous years with that differential of how Wakefield did versus the state, our high needs students have made some gains there. We have also reduced the number of students not meeting expectations for 4th grade students with disabilities. And so that's really something that, when we're tracking our subgroups, we'd like to look at different pieces of that data to make sure that, we're not just looking at needs plus exceeds, but where else have we made gains? And so we've seen less students not meeting expectations in 4th grade for students with disabilities. For science, a really nice piece of data that we saw was a really big improvement on the 4th grade science standards from grade 5 MCAS. And so, we call that an elementary highlight because the students who took grade 5 MCAS last year, which is an assessment of grades 3, 4, and 5 in 5th grade, those were the students who first had a 4th grade science specialist. And so what we saw in those test results when we parsed out the 3rd grade questions, the 4th grade questions, and the 5th grade questions was a big improvement from 1 year to the next on the 4th grade standards. In the 3rd and 5th grade standards were pretty flat, but we could see a really direct correlation to students having that push-in science specialist in their classes in 4th grade to then what they were able to do on the science MCAS the following year.
I think Lindsay, Joanne, and I were all super excited about that data point, seeing the science specialist work.
Credit to Joanne Marks for parsing that out and figuring it out.
Joanne has been integral in that work as well, and
a lot of work.
I think they're going to talk about areas of improvement later, but I think Lindsay and I and the principal team are all super excited about the gains that we've seen in aligning the elementary schools over the last few years, and we're looking forward to the next steps, which the principals are going to talk about later. So.
Yeah, I will say that, the work of implementing new curriculum and trying new things and shifting our practice in line to the standards is really hard. And our teachers are working exceptionally hard to do that in really putting in the time it takes to do the right thing for kids. And we're starting to see that in our data, which is exciting.
Great, thank you so much. Now we're going to jump over to secondary highlights. So I'll pull.
I have a quick question. Do we have any theory on what causes such differences between different elementary schools? I love Mr. Liberti, so I'll pick on him for a second. What causes Dolbear to have totally different results than say Walton?
I mean, TJ, I hope you don't mind if I just jump in. I just have a kind of, if it's theory. I mean, I think we're talking. I think the math information is so important because we're in our 3rd year of our math implementation, and like Lindsay said, the work that Val and Marguerite and the teachers and the principals have done to support consistent implementation of curriculum across every grade level. I think we're seeing the impacts of that. ELA, we're just in year 1 right now. Last year was our review. We were somewhat in limbo in terms of, and we had known, one of the things that we picked up in our ELA review is that we were inconsistent in terms of our curriculum at all 4 elementary schools. I think that the response to shifting curriculum, I think our bigger schools with more subgroups of students with different needs, I think early on, the teachers were kind of telling us that they didn't feel that units of study was meeting the mark for those students. I think we see the impact of, Walton staff doing an exceptional job coordinating their curriculum across the school. But I think ELA is an area where we are a little bit, we've seen improvement, which is great, but I think our data also justifies the need to be doing what we're doing right now and to keep, staying consistent. So we were super excited about the math because as you saw, all schools met or exceeded targets. So that was just a great highlight right there. So that's I think we're going to talk about curriculum coordination all day long. I mean, that has been the mission. It has been the push for the last 5 years, getting our curriculum standards aligned, having guarantees level to level and that consistency so that there's not unnecessary reteaching or not focusing on the right thing. So if that
Kara,
helps.
can I add to that?
Absolutely.
So the other thing is, I think Kara mentioned this a little bit. The at the Dole Bear in math, every subgroup exceeded targets, and last year TJ and Michelle and the ILT all had a math goal. So the focus was math. We all aligned around math and really put the efforts into math there when it was in year 2 of implementation. And so that is the work, TJ, I don't know if you want to chime in here, but that's the work. Well, you might want to chime in the next steps because that's about ELA.
Yeah.
So that's where we'll talk about the plans for ELA.
But I think that that's the theory that we all can get behind, because when we look at our district, we have, great resources, great teachers, great parent involvement, and there were pieces where, like, why are our achievement levels in certain spots not where we want them to be? And that's, we kind of go back to systems and expectations.
Yeah, and if you look at the divergence between the 4 elementary schools, there is less of a divergence in the math results than with the ELA results.
Absolutely.
So I think that that bears looking into too. It seems that there's more equity between the schools in terms of the math scores as opposed to the ELA scores.
Absolutely.
Kara, I was just going to add to that, kind of to what was said there, is that I think one thing to remember too is that consistent implementation and consistent improvement, as well as focused improvement, like we're talking about at Dole Bear last year, is the way that is measured and seen across the schools is a closing of that difference between the schools, but also there's a different baseline from where each school was, right? And so, doing consistent things and really improving practice across the board is not going to look exactly equal across the board because everyone was starting at a different place. Our goal is to get there, and we're already seeing some more consistent results, and I only expect that to get better as we go.
Thank you. All right, so we'll segue now to secondary highlights.
Stephen,
Sorry,
Can I just
Stephen.
jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
What I'm curious about is sort of two things. I think Dr. Lyons mentioned that Walton had been a school of distinction for a couple of years that shows sort of repeatability. And then in looking at sort of the 4 elementary schools, I think we see 2 schools, Walton and Woodville, are sort of consistent in their accountability percentile and their progress towards improvement targets. I think we see fluctuation in Greenwood and Dole Bear. I'm curious, I think our goal would be repeatable results, right? Things like that consistency level. So I think it'd be interesting to sort of dig into, I think we're seeing progression from all the schools, but it's being able to sort of build on a foundation and move in a direction. And if we can be consistent in some of our schools and repeatable in some of our schools, then we should be able to sort of take those methods and perhaps sort of cast them out to some of the other schools. I'm sure this isn't news to you, and everyone involved in the call. You've all seen the numbers. You've been with them for a while. I'm just curious of what do you think that we can sort of replicate out, or have you been able to tease out significant factors that would be worth sharing as a matter of practice?
Well, I like what you're saying in terms of we don't want just little spikes of, we are all, I think we're all focused on the long game of consistently seeing our students, no matter which school they're in, what grade level, year to year, do well. And we want that consistency years to come. I'm glad you did point out Woodville. I would be happy to, I know Matt would probably be happy to speak to it, but I think that Woodville was kind of on the front end of identifying the need for more structured literacy. I think Matt really took a lead in his school last year when I said we were in the review process and there was kind of a lot of things that were going on, and he definitely helped lead his team to put in place some more structured literacy practices, particularly with regard to writing. So Matt, if you want to jump in on that piece, I do think it's a good entry point for you. It kind of helped make the case for where we are going now as a district because you saw some nice growth.
Yeah, I think every school is proud of where they started and where they're at now. I think if you look at the accountability percentiles, I think as a district, we should be really, really proud of our students' achievement and what they're able to do on these kind of norm referenced assessments. When you look at kind of our curriculum review process and the fact that now we are piloting EL education, which is kind of the foundation, and it's something that is highly promoted, through the state. we are moving away from our units of study, and that, I think when I entered Woodville, really in looking at data and digging into data, I saw some really, really big gaps in our writing in particular, and in doing so, I really kind of brought our teachers together, because there were students day in, day out, and I listened to them, and kind of in looking at our curriculum that we were using and what students were able to actually produce, we were able to identify, you know, what we thought was the next step forward. And we engaged in a really robust process. Our ILT, which is our student leaders at Woodville, our teacher leaders at Woodville, were able to really kind of embark on a journey over the last couple of years, to really bring the writing up at our school. And I'm really proud of our writing results in particular at Woodville. If you dig into like the item analysis, I would line our students up against anybody in the state at the Woodville school, and that's something for me that I'm proud of. But I'm also, I also want to give credit to our teachers, but I want to give credit to our students too. They're the ones that put the work in day out, and we're really happy with the students that we're sending to the Galvin School, middle school, and what they're able to produce as students there. And I know it's going to serve them well in the future. So we're really now digging in with fidelity to the new program. And we're really hopeful that that program is going to continue to build on the success we've had as a school, in spite of COVID, over the past few years. So I don't know, Kara, if you want me to expand on that anymore.
No, that's
or
great. No, that's great. And the thing, and you made me think of another point. Just what you said. We're aligning as our 4 elementary schools, like Matt said, trying to get them as prepared as possible for Galvin. And then now it's our eye is on level to level transitions as well. And I'd like to credit Val, Drina, and Margaret Messier for just starting this year, at least starting the conversation on 4 to 5 transition. They have a working group to start talking about the 4th to 5th grade transition and how we can just do, from a curriculum perspective, just do a more seamless job with that. So I think there's a lot of good things to come, just to see those long-term impacts.
Kara, can I say something really quickly about?
Of course.
I think it's our tendency, and I'm just listening to this elementary portion of the presentation. It's our tendency to compare, school to school, and that's what the state does as well. But I think it could be helpful also to think about some of the nuances that come into play when we look at comparison data. I think, as someone who used to lead a school that was 70% English learners, we would expect English learners to take at least 6 years to get to kind of a level of proficiency that would then allow them to make the kind of gains that the state wanted them to see year over year. And the different populations that we're super proud to serve in each of our different schools do play a role in kind of what our year-to-year results look like. So I think it's helpful in some ways to compare and to definitely celebrate the awesome work at the Walton. But that awesome work just looks different, I think, depending on who makes up your student population, and how that plays into how kids tend to perform on standardized tests. So I think all of it is worth looking at and talking about, but that's an important piece that we often lose track of, and that can just kind of fall into the comparison that isn't always totally helpful.
Absolutely. Thanks, Meg. That's helpful. That's a good transition as well, because we're on the secondary highlight slide. So you can keep speaking if you'd like.
I think actually Amy's going to start with the ELA.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. So thank you, everyone. So I think, a few things that we want to talk about. And before I get to the slide, I want to just, if I could just respond to one thing that Stephen said. When we talk about repeatable results, Stephen, I think what makes it so difficult when we're looking at MCAS data is that, what's not repeatable is the students year after year, right? And so we're, especially, when we're only seeing them at each of our buildings for 4 years, right? And I know that seems like a long time, but it's really not, right? Because you start to figure out what's working with particular students. At the high school level, you get one chance to test them in MCAS, right? I mean, then they have repeat after that. But you're taking this shot on an MCAS with students when they've only really known their teachers for a couple of years. And so we are looking at consistency with curriculum. That's what I want to talk about right now when we look at sort of the highlights. And we want to talk about the consistency with instructional methods. And I think that's what ties to our school improvement plans. The nice part about this is Meg and I and the Galvin team and the high school team were able to kind of look at this data and see some of the highlights here and then also write our school improvement plan so that we can talk about some of the consistencies across how we can address this. So Kara, do you want me to talk about the highlights here, or do you want me to?
I apologize. I pulled you into the wrong slide, Amy. I love how you were just going with it, Amy. You're on the wrong. I pulled you into the wrong slide. This is Margaret, Joanne, and and Lindsay. You were so great about jumping around.
I'm supposed to talk about this, but if Amy wants to, go for it.
No, this is completely my mistake. Go ahead.
So we have some highlights. So our growth measures improved for all of our students at the Galvin, including our lowest performing students. So we're hoping to see that continue. In 5th and 6th grade, we increased our performance for students with disabilities who met or exceeded expectations, and that actually went in both grades, one from 17 to 22% in 5th grade, and from 14 to 22% in 6th grade. In 7th and 8th grade, there was I think a pretty considerable increase in who met and exceeded expectations. So in 2022, in 7th grade, it was 57% of students meeting or exceeding. And then in 2023, it was 61%. And in 8th, it was even more significant. It was 49% to 56%. So I think those are definitely increases we can celebrate. At the high school, it's been pretty consistent that our growth from the cohort, so when you look at where they were in 8th grade to where they were in 10th grade, we're making pretty huge gains, and I know they have kind of an extra year there because they're not taking it from year to year, but we're going from 2021, 42% of students meeting or exceeding to, in 2023, 65% of students meeting or exceeding. So I think that's huge growth that we can continue to celebrate and expand upon. And at the high school, we're also closing the gap between how all students are performing and how high need students are performing. And one more quick thing is that our student growth percentile is almost at the high growth level. We're at 57, and we need to be at 60 for it to be high growth, and that's been consistently improving. So that's my highlights.
Lindsay, you want to jump in for math?
Yeah, I just got to find that, unmute button.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I am excited to share with everybody, some of our highlights in math in secondary in the last year for our results. And so, I know one of the things that has been a really hot button topic with school committee and the public is, are we meeting the needs of students who excel in our courses? And I was so excited to see that in every single MCAS grade 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, there was an increase from 2022 to 2023 of students who scored exceeds expectations on Math MCAS. We've never had that kind of result. Wakefield before, in my years here since 2019, that's really been like that bar that we hadn't seemed to be able to move. And so it's moving, and I'm really excited in the direction it's going. We also saw a reduction of students with disabilities who are not meeting expectations in grade 5, which means that more of our students are moving into that partially meets expectations, and we're really looking forward to seeing more of them moving into meeting expectations in the future. Our 6th grade cohort had an 18% increase in students who met or exceeded expectations over 5th grade from 2022 results. That is something that's really important, kind of similar to how Ms. McLeod described it. It's really difficult in Wakefield, as we talk about the district as a whole, it is actually very small. And so some of these jumps up and down that we see in our subgroups and in results that we get in one year is really due to specific population changes. And Ms. Webb also talked about that. And so when we look at cohort growth, which in the supplemental handout that we shared with school committee, we made available to the public, those colored charts that show different color diagonally for each group of students moving through the grades is really indicative of how students' progress is changing over time, because those are the actual kids we're talking about, not just 3rd grade one year to 3rd grade the next year, but following a cohort of children and seeing how what we're doing for them is making a difference. And so it's exciting to see that big increase for the 6th grade cohort this year.
At the high school, we exceeded our state targets for growth in mathematics, which means that based on how the state thought we were going to do in terms of growth for our students, we exceeded that target. In addition, there was a massive increase in students who met or exceeded expectations over the last time they took Math MCAS, which was in 8th grade 2021. Now, that number is gigantic. 30% is a really big number. It is a lot of hard work by our high school educators implementing new curriculum over the last 2 years. It's a lot of work trying to help students recover from the pandemic and being in school full time. So there are a lot of variables contributing to that increase. Also, the way that the Math MCAS is scored at the 10th grade level seems to be a little bit softer than how it is at the elementary schools, trying to make sure kids get there. But is nonetheless a really big number, and we're excited to see that kind of growth at the high school for our students' culminating MCAS experience.
Great. Okay, well then I can summarize briefly the results for and the highlights for science, technology, and education. Just as a reminder, students take the science MCAS in grades 5, grade 8, and then they take the high school bio MCAS after taking grade 9 biology. So there's 3 times throughout their Wakefield experience where they'll have a science MCAS. So the Galvin results here are looking both at grades 5 and grade 8. We mentioned earlier what kind of after digging into those grade 5 results, the growth that we had seen because of the addition to the 4th grade science teacher piece. And I'm hopeful looking forward that we will continue to see those results and that they will show kind of a broader range of growth. And then I think the biggest takeaways is that in both grade 5 and grade 8 science, when we look at the targets for achievement that the state sets, that we have met those targets, and that specifically in grade 8, there was an increase in students who met and exceeded expectations. And overall, it's not listed here, but I think what we see in science are really consistent results. We've got clearly the teachers are working very, very hard. They're putting in a lot, they're working creatively, and we're not seeing great gains, we're also not seeing great declines. We've been really consistent year over year in what we're doing. Similarly at the high school. So we've seen an increase in a percentage of students that have passed the bio MCAS in the last year. So we saw really a big decrease in the number of students who did not pass. And again, really consistent results. So it's worth celebrating, excuse me, that consistency. It also leads, I think, into our next steps for areas of growth and ways that we can push that.
And I will just remind the committee, I know I mentioned it, that Joanne and Lindsay right now are leading a curriculum review, a science curriculum review that will take place across the course of this year. This information will be part of that process. So I've spoke to a lot of this. I'll try to keep it moving. I think, we've talked about curriculum coordination, professional development, collaboration. Writing was a particular area that's been mentioned. That's an area of focus at our, between the adoption of our new ELA curriculum, K-4, as well as the Empower Writing PD that's happening across 5 through 12. I did want to just spend a little bit of a minute or so on the top piece. The achievement gap between high needs and all students is something that we're noticing across the district. We're really trying to dig in and think more about, how to support achievement for students with high needs. We pulled Rosie Galvin into this conversation, and we're looking particularly into, how all of our students are accessing everything that's available through Gen Ed, our tiered system of supports, and then any types of alternate special ed programming that's not within the general education curriculum. What are the resources being used? What is the specially designed instruction that's occurring, so that we're keeping kids progressing? That's something that, I think larger conversations will happen across the district, but we all have identified this is an area that we need to look at a little more closely and try to improve upon. So then we'll jump in. The way we wanted to kind of end with an action plan, just with highlights, areas of growth, and here's what we're going to keep doing. So I'll pass this over from preschool elementary.
All right, great. I'm leading off for the preschool elementary group. We have this continued focus, and we've been kind of alluding to it all night, referencing it all night. But this ELA curriculum implementation, the new EL curriculum that we're putting into place, we actually incorporated it into our school improvement plan under the rich and challenging curriculum goal. Anytime you implement any new curriculum, it's always a huge lift in that first year. This in particular, because it's actually a very different curriculum than the one we had in place before, and it really kind of focuses on some of these practices that are supported by the science of reading. So, for example, one of the things this curriculum does is it's a very full integration of reading and writing as opposed to separate reading and writing blocks. It really emphasizes kids, learning about material and then writing about that material to really solidify what they know and are able to kind of tell people about. Kind of going along with that, it also focuses a lot on building content knowledge or background knowledge, with the idea being that if you want kids to be able to write well about things, they have to have information about those things. They need something to write about. So that's a really heavy focus in this new curriculum. And then the third thing that is a big shift is the use of complex texts with all children as opposed to leveled text, kind of the old, what level is this child reading at? These are the books they're going to have. We really want to emphasize that kind of growth and stretch for all children. And Kara was kind of referencing that in what she was just talking about. We want to have high expectations for all students. We want to give students the opportunities to be able to access these texts. So that's why we thought this was such an important piece to put in our school improvement plans, because our PD this year is all very heavily focused around that. We've got, full buy-in from all of our teachers for this. Back when we were looking at this plan and trying to decide how we were going to roll it out, we expected a lot of people to be excited, but everybody's excited about it. Everybody really wanted to jump in and get going with it. The next thing we have is a continued focus on ELA foundational skills focus in K-3. So prior to last year, grades K through 2 were using the Foundations program for phonics instruction. Last year, we decided to kind of do a recommitment, refocus, really kind of full-on commitment to the Foundations program and extend it up to grade 3 as well. So thinking about that DESE early literacy group, which is considered grades K through 3, and making sure that we're not only using Foundations, but also bringing in the Hegarty Phonemic Awareness Program. So all classrooms were using it last year. They're using it again this year. And we also included that in our school improvement plan under quality teaching, because we don't want to lose the good work that's happened. We want to continue. And I know at Greenwood and probably at the other schools as well, the feedback from teachers is that they're definitely seeing the results in the kids they've received this year from all that work that's happened the previous year. So we just want to keep continuing to build on that. And then I think Shannon Blacker was going to jump in on this as well.
Yep. Hey everybody, so I know this is about MCAS and action plans, and preschool doesn't really do MCAS, but we are linked to this because we are also, our part of our school improvement plan is to jump on the Foundations and the Hegarty this year in particular. So we are working with the Hegarty program for the first time this year. A couple teachers last year piloted it, but with our age-based classrooms, we are really able to now, they have a pre-K version and they have a preschool version of Hegarty. So we are doing it in all of our classrooms now, both 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and our teachers absolutely love it and our students absolutely love it, so which is great. So hopefully we are hitting more and more earlier on, so then all of these results can just have a bigger impact as we move forward. Also, I just wanted to highlight for both, and this is a segue to the math, for both ELA and math, Doyle is doing a complete curriculum review this year as part of a goal for our improvement plan. We have a group of teachers with our ILT working on piloting 2 different programs along with what we are currently doing at Doyle. We are pulling from all different curriculums right now. We're trying to see if there is a preschool version or a curriculum out there that really targets all these areas. So we're not using multiple curriculums to kind of target every little bit of curriculum for our 4-year-olds. So we're doing that for both ELA and math to see if we can really focus on one curriculum versus 5 or 6 different ones. But we might come to the conclusion that what we're doing is, because we've created a lot ourselves, is better than what is out there. And then we'll go put it on the market ourselves and make some money.
Thank you.
So I think that will transition right to whoever's doing the math.
I think it goes to
portion.
Brian next.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep. So I'll talk a little bit about math. As Tiffany and Shannon described, we're hyper focused on early literacy right now, implementing this new curriculum. And you may recall the past 2 years, a large part of our school improvement plans was focused on the implementation of illustrative math, a new math curriculum. And we're on year 3 of our implementation with that. And as has been discussed, we've seen some encouraging results. So we're continuing that work. We're working with an organization through a K-12 high quality instructional materials grant. The organization is called the Teaching Lab, who is working with us, supporting our coaches. There will be some job embedded PD for teachers in the spring. Administrators are participating in training related to providing equitable experiences in the math classroom through the Teaching Lab. So that's off to a really great start. We're also continuing with our math intervention. At all 4 schools, we are making sure that we have at least 2 win blocks each week at 3rd and 4th grade to provide math intervention and or enrichment. All of our schools have a person who delivers math intervention, and that has gone really well to help meet individual student needs. We are continuing to use iReady data to help us decide what those student groups look like, and how to make the most of that time. And then lastly, related to science, as has also been mentioned a couple of times, saw some encouraging results with items on the MCAS related to the 4th grade science standards. This is the 2nd year now that we will have science teachers in all grades K-4 at the elementary schools, and we will continue that and hope to continue to see really positive results. So I will pass it over to Matt to talk a little bit more.
At each of the elementary schools, we have a win block, and we've been able to schedule that in. That's a what I need block. So K through 4 classroom teachers have the flexibility to use that time as needed to develop small groups. It's also a time where we're able to provide the math intervention space for our upper elementary students, like Brian referenced. And K through 4, it's also an opportunity for us to pull students to engage in small group instruction with reading teachers and interventionists. So we've been able to identify through data the needs of our school communities and establish small groups based on that. Each of our schools has a data process. We have recently wrapped up data meetings at each of our schools, and we've used that information to then move students into that intervention space where they can get what they need in that moment to address any sort of gaps in literacy or math that they may have that may be holding them back. So that's an exciting piece that we've been able to continue, but also further develop at each of our elementary schools. I feel like at one point we were doing kind of the intervention space in a similar type fashion, but not exactly the same. And now I feel like we are far more aligned in terms of what we are giving to students and what we're able to provide, which is wonderful. That's through the guidance of our curriculum coordinators, but also through feedback of our teachers. They've been instrumental in this process, really bringing kind of student needs up, really basing kind of the information and data, and sending kind of students into the interventions that they may need. Now, as we move through the school year, opportunities for enrichment may present themselves. This is a chance for us to pull students who may be a little ahead of the curve in terms of grade level standard and be able to address some of those needs as well, which we're really excited about. Beginning of year, we tend to focus more on students who may show up in the concerning categories and try to address those needs. But as the year progresses, we're excited to move those students back into kind of those grade level expectation categories and maybe start moving on to address some of the enrichment chances that we're excited to provide to students as well. In terms of professional development, we're always thinking about kind of what our staff needs to address the students in front of them. In terms of intervention and enrichment, which is part of most of our schools' improvement plan, we're thinking about what next steps make sense for students, right? We have a very student-centered lens, a really data-focused lens, and we're always trying to provide them, the best opportunities for students so that they not only perform highly within this community, but once they get to the middle school and beyond, they're able to perform highly and really carry kind of that Wakefield flag wherever they may land in the future. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to TJ.
Thank you, Matt. To kind of add on to what Matt was saying with regards to alignment of intervention and support to students, I guess to some extent, dare I say, a gift of that COVID brought us is a collaboration that teachers move towards around aligning and creating more consistency amongst instructional practice across our schools. And that is supported through our curriculum coordinators, our coaches, our administration, our ILTs, to try to ensure that students are getting as similar experience as they can amongst the 4 schools. And the investment in the curriculum materials we've had over the last few years have supported that as well in shifting our instructional practices. Along with that, we, and I know this committee's been very passionate about communication with families around student progress. We are constantly reviewing our practices and trying to find ways to better communicate with our families to show them how their students are progressing. Many of you know that DESE recently developed a policy around, sharing the dyslexia screener or early literacy screeners with families, and to let them know specifically if their children are in that risk category. And that's something that we have just completed early this year, and we'll be sharing out with families in the next week or so the results of those screeners, and then if students are at risk, what is the action plan for those students, how are they being supported, and what are we doing to help them move forward. Doing that in literacy. We also, as Matt has talked about, Brian, previous to this, are doing that with math as well through our intervention and ensuring that students are making growth. And earlier in this presentation, we talked about our MCAS and the growth that we made in those areas, specifically in math, are supported through the shifts that we made in instructional practices, curriculum materials, and investment in intervention. Lastly, when we talk about a continuation of improving upon our instructional practices and resources, we turn to science with a curriculum review that's going on, the investment in science specialists with the budget support, as well as alignment with Joanne and the secondary team for science to look at our standards and look at our curriculum resources and our instructional practices to ensure that we're meeting the needs of students and helping them grow. And just want to say thank you to the committee as well as the community for supporting budgets year after year that allow for investment in our students' investment into curriculum resources, professional development, instructional strategies and practices that allow our students to continue to grow in this town. So we're doing a lot of work, it feels like, in a short amount of time. And that work has started to yield, tremendous success for our students, and we anticipate that those successes are going to continue as we move forward.
Thanks, TJ. Any questions for elementary before we move on?
I know you. Oh, sorry, did you have a question?
I don't have a question.
No, I didn't know if you wanted to call on people. You want me to?
Go ahead.
I know you had said in prior meetings that iReady is a newer tool available to us for diagnostics, and I think it was Brian who mentioned it. And I'm just curious, I know we started this year trying to do some benchmarking of students. Have we found that the data we're getting from iReady is consistent with the data we're getting from MCAS? I'm just curious if we had, obviously MCAS is just one point in time, and a kid could have just bombed the test that day. And I'm just curious if we're getting consistent data or inconsistent data between that, since that's our tool that we have outside of MCAS to
Yeah, I think
benchmark.
I think we
I
are.
believe there's.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, whoever wants to jump in. Yep.
I correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else, but I believe there's about a 90% correlation between what we see on iReady and MCAS typically, Pete.
Okay.
And so yes, I think it's pretty close.
So when we're
They
making
actually did
indicator, yeah.
Yeah, you're right on, Brian. They actually did a statewide study on this, and Wakefield participated in that as well. So a part of the report out on that included looking at our data for both iReady and MCAS over the last few years.
Okay, so sorry, just a follow-up question, and I'll pass it
Oh,
to
yeah,
Kevin.
yeah.
So we feel pretty confident that we can use that as a tool to see how our progress is going based on all the various things we're rolling out. Like, we don't have to wait for another MCAS to know, are we
Yeah.
making progress?
Yeah, Pete, just to add on to that too, when we talk about the investment in curriculum resources and instructional materials that we're using, one of the other thing that we did as we did some deeper dives in our data analysis, we look at programs like ST Math, which was, Val was one of the instrumental people bringing on board, during COVID. We see direct correlation with students that are hitting their minutes, that are making their journey along, looking at their iReady progress and what they're getting in iReady for those benchmark scores and what their MCAS is. There's a very strong correlation between that, along with the shifts that we made in instructional practices in math and the investment of resources. So, I'm really excited to see the trajectory in just a short time that we've seen in our math. So, the investments that we made in these kind of diagnostic assessment tools are helping us get more clear data before we go to like an MCAS, which is, not to use the word autopsying, but, we get that data after the fact, right? The kids, we're able to look back, but not really make an adjustment for that particular cohort with iReady and these other products that we've invested in, allow our teachers to make kind of more in-season, for lack of a better phrase, adjustment or in-game adjustments as they progress through the year.
Okay, so you're saying that we're seeing a 90% correlation between the end of the year iReady test and the MCAS scores for the students. Is that correct?
We're seeing a correlation, yes.
That 90% correlation. Okay. Yep. So obviously, communicating with families would be pointless with that end of the year iReady score because the kids would have already taken the MCAS, right? Because I assume that the last iReady test that they take is after mid-May. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's probably mid-May.
Right, okay. So, but they do take an iReady test in the middle of the school, correct?
Yep,
January.
3 times a year, beginning,
Right.
middle, and end.
So I guess my question is, have we looked at the correlation between the mid-year iReady score and the MCAS scores that have just come out? The reason why I'm saying this, if we're talking about increasing family communication, it might be helpful to actually communicate to families after the mid-year iReady test, because at that point you've still got about 3 months roughly before the MCAS, and that way you might be able to. That communication could actually be very helpful to some parents in order to be helping work with teachers to help their kids grow on the standards that they want to have before the MCAS. So I was wondering if that's something we were potentially.
Kara, do you want me to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and jump in.
So, 2 pieces on that particular front. Number one, we have learned of a couple of new features in the iReady platform, which we're really excited about. One of those is actually the ability for parents to be able to see their children's iReady scores digitally. So we don't have to print it and we don't have to send it. And so we're really excited about activating that feature, and we're looking into that for that middle of the year diagnostic, just like you're talking about. And so it's kind of like your plan. It's a great question, and we're really looking into that. We're going to get that going. And then the other feature that is exciting that iReady has added to their platform is that they've added a year-end kind of proficiency predictor. And so based on kind of where a kid is at right now, if they continue growing at the same way they are, there's this prediction of where they're expecting kids to be unless something changes, right? So there's a number of new features that are speaking really exactly to what you're talking about. In terms of that proficiency predictor, we're still digging into that and trying to figure out how it works, but at the minimum, we should be able to have some digital access to that family report for parents, which is really great because at middle of the year one shows where kids were at the beginning, how they've grown and what they've done, in areas for improvement moving forward. And so I think that it'll be a really great opportunity for parents to learn more about their children's iReady scores in the middle of the year.
Good. Okay. All right. Thank you all. All right. We'll switch over to the secondary action plan with Meg and Amy.
Great, thank you. I'll jump in at the right time this time. So.
No, that was my fault, Amy. You were doing a great job.
I was just gonna wing it. Sorry. That's sorry. I thought maybe I missed something in the play. No. So thank you, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the ELA, and then I'm going to hand it over to Meg to talk about math and science. One thing I want to add before we jump into ELA is I think it's important to note at the secondary level there's other indicators that were looked at in our accountability data that I know that both the Galvin and the high school are working on very closely. So, you know, our chronic absenteeism, looking at our dropout rates at the high school, and also with the high school looking at our advanced coursework. So these are areas that we take very seriously that we're working on with lots of different plans that we could talk about at a different time. But that really helps us with our accountability data as well. So I think, you know, going back to what Margaret, I think Margaret did a great job laying out sort of what highlighting some of the the highlights and the challenges in ELA. And I think that, you know, when we think about, as I was saying earlier, our school improvement plans falling under thinking about curriculum and instruction, when you look at our action plan, it really falls under what we're having our teachers focus on in the departments, and we see a lot of teachers' goals built around this action plan. So really thinking about the Empower training, focusing on writing. As Margaret said, we have seen great gains. I think we've seen great gains just with the consistency of the new curriculum in English, but really thinking about using similar writing approaches so that students are not only seeing that in ELA, but the teachers in social studies, our special education teachers, and our English language learner teachers are getting trained in a consistent way of approaching writing that's not formulaic, but allows students to use similar strategies across content areas to improve their writing. I think not only are we working on that, they are also thinking about benchmarks for writing, and this is growing as well. So ELA has worked on benchmarks for writing so that there can be some predictive work going on to see what the growth is across a year for a student. But we're also seeing that work grow in social studies now, where we're implementing benchmarks using sort of a DBQ form of writing, a document-based question, which students are writing about, helping them to analyze text and analyze documents, and writing about those, again, using similar types of strategies that would be similar to their English classes. So I think that looking at some of the work around the benchmarks from 6 to 12, and Megan talked some about more of those at the Galvin, but really thinking about not only iReady, but some of the other reading comprehension benchmarks. So we're not only looking at students' writing and their output, but really looking at comprehension skills, which we know at the secondary level falls off, right? We know that students through technology, reading comprehension skills are really taking a hit. So I think it's great that we're seeing some consistent approach to monitoring those and talking about what are the instructional practices and tools that we can use to support those. I think the last piece that is when we talk about intervention structures, again, the WIN block at Galvin, Meg will talk about more. But I think the class sizes at the high school have really enabled, especially with the 9th and 10th grade, we have very manageable class sizes that really are helping our ELA teachers and our social studies teachers to dig in with our students so that they're getting an opportunity to make sure that they know our students well as readers and writers, so that, you know, again, much of the MCAS, we can talk about cohorts, but we're also talking about individual growth of students. And I think that we're creating those structures to kind of support that work. Finally, I think ELA is at the forefront, looking at comprehensive data collection. Margaret and Bridget Haggerty at the high school do a great job in sort of breaking down the data for teachers, and then using that data, not only looking at the dashboard that they're creating through Wakefield Analytics that we're hoping will spread to other content areas, but also really having teachers have that data ready, available, and accessible so that they kind of know where their students are performing. Again, what the predictive factors are, right? Because we're dealing with new students every year, so we're not going to implement those consistent structures with the same kids over and over again. It's going to be a new cohort every year. But looking at that data over time so that we can kind of see what's working, what's not, what standards that we're addressing, where the standards are that we're falling behind. So that's sort of the action plan for ELA, and like I said, we really see that not only in the school improvement plan, but we see that filtering down through individual teacher goals as well. So I think that's really exciting to see the work so highly aligned all the way from the district sort of achievement plans all the way down to the teacher goals. So I'll turn it over to Meg.
Sure. Thanks, Amy. I'll talk a bit about math and science, and I think you'll hear a lot of familiar themes, which is one of the nice things I think about hearing from all of the principals and the curriculum coordinators all in one evening. Is that I think a lot of the work that can sometimes feel very widespread and overwhelming in a way kind of comes together in a nice way when we talk about it all in this format. So in math, we have a similar theme of just making strides and being able to use data about student performance and student learning in real time in a more powerful way. I think you see that through a number of these particular highlights. One, the continued focus on illustrative mathematics, curriculum implementation. Depending on the grade level, we're in year 2, 3. Was already in year 4? I think at least 2 or 3. In terms of implementation. And I think anyone who's gone through curriculum implementation, that's when it starts to feel just much more a part of a natural fiber of the school. That's when you kind of get to do some of the deeper work around curriculum development and instruction. So it's been exciting to see that work continue under Lisa Tibbitz's leadership at the middle school. Professional development supporting improved instructional practice in mathematics with specific focus on math language routines has also helped us to open up more conversations around equity and around whether or not we're ensuring that all students can access rigorous curriculum, grade level curriculum, and make the progress we would expect them to make, kind of knowing the starting point that each of them might have. And then Amy referenced the math skills courses at the high school. We've also undertaken a pretty ambitious WIN block pilot at the middle school, which I know you heard about at the elementary school, and that's no accident. I spent a lot of the spring touring the different elementary schools and seeing how they were utilizing small groupings to make sure they were targeting students in ELA and math instruction, and stole a lot of their strategies and structures to make sure that we were continuing that great work through the middle school and then in the kind of age appropriate way into the high school. So I think all of those pieces are part of our school improvement plan and just really do reflect both the strengths and the areas for growth in the data we just reviewed. Science, we're really excited to be entering the curriculum review. Also excited about the way that science is strengthened through the WIN block through enrichment at the Galvin. So students really building some of what you heard, I think, Tiffany talking about in terms of content knowledge, and some of that when we read the research about how much just knowledge has been lost over the last several years in terms of students just knowing things about content. Our teachers have come up with some really creative ways to dive into kind of niche content areas in science and social studies that complement a lot of the incredible work going on in terms of curriculum review under Joanne's leadership. I also just want to echo what Amy shared around chronic absenteeism and around some of the, I guess, quote unquote, softer measures on the DESE scorecard. I think both secondary schools made pretty incredible gains in terms of chronic absenteeism. I think we both exceeded our goals, which was really awesome because we've spent a lot of time working on that and messaging that out to families to just help get back really healthy school attendance habits among our students. And I think last meeting you guys reviewed a lot of the YRBS data, and at both the middle school and the high school, we were really pleased to see a huge jump in students reporting trusted adults in the building, being able to identify safe spaces, which was something we worked really intentionally towards as well. So I think those pieces do get reflected in different ways in the DESE scorecard, but not necessarily just in the cut MCAS scores.
Thanks so much, Meg. Any questions for Meg or Amy? Good. All right. So that I think that was a good format of asking questions along the way. This last document, we will make this presentation available on our website so that people can access the links that we've provided for if people want to dig in a little bit more. We also have linked our instructional strategy and the school improvement plans that were referenced tonight. So I won't even go to the last slide because we've already answered it. But I really can't thank the group here tonight enough. It is such a team effort, and it was just so nice to hear from everyone, and just, again, the consistency in the work that we're all moving in the same direction. I think we'll have some great outcomes for our students.
Right. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No. Thank you very much for coming.
Hey, thank you all so much. Oh, Stephen, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. So I like sort of digging into the data. I think I feel like MCAS has been in the media a little bit lately, or at least the media I consume, because of like the Thrive Act that's going on in sort of state legislature and talking about it as a graduation requirement. Sort of putting that aside, having this this sort of cohort of educators talking about it as a tool to inform on curriculum and sort of set a direction to the district is, I think, an important focus. I think, whatever we think about standardized tests, they're useful to sort of inform on practice. And hearing you all talk about it in that way is helpful. So sort of thank you for sort of doing the business and diving in the numbers, even if you don't like numbers. And I appreciate that you take it seriously and that you use that tool. I think it's interesting because my fifth grader recently said something to me. We were talking about win time. And he made an observation that win time is focused on ELA and math. And he asked me, why is that? Why don't I have a social studies? Why don't I have a science win block? And I think we know the reason, and it's MCAS. And so I think as we try and sort of meet students where they are, I think we can talk about win time involving social studies and involving science, because one pathway to understanding literacy and reading high quality text might be through a social studies pathway, learning history, learning about different cultures and using those texts. And another way to approach math is from a science base, through measurements and sort of observations. So it'd just be interesting to sort of take a larger lens on what we consider being win time. Are we doing what I need as a student, or are we doing what our expectations are around sort of what we want to achieve in a curriculum lens, on a standardized test? So I just think it warrants just thinking about. Mm-hmm. And then I wonder about, we've discussed before, and I think, Harry, you mentioned this, that we were going to start continuing to measure students even after they've met grade level achievement. And when we talk about MCAS, and the bar seems to be meeting or exceeding expectations, and it stops there. And it seems like we don't, I don't think anybody really does, continues to look at students once they get past that. It's sort of, they've met this bar, they're out of the gate, let's move on and get to the next sort of population. So I also think it's worth maintaining purposeful focus on those kids that are continuing to meet or exceed standard, and what are we providing them around the realm of high quality instruction, and not just like getting early access to whatever their next grade is, mm-hmm. because then they'll just get there and they'll be bored. Mm-hmm. So just some points of thought, maybe a discussion point here or there, but overall, thank you for this presentation. I know we like to have shorter presentations, but this is wholly worth every minute that we've spent on it, minus probably me just blathering on. So, thank you for your time and your effort. It's greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Stephen.
Maybe towards the end of the school year, we could have a presentation on WIN and how it went in the middle school, because Stephen's description of WIN does not match my daughter's 8th grade description of WIN, so I don't know if it's differentiated differently between grades.
Yeah, short answer is it's very different in the lower and upper house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would love to come back and talk more about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Doug and I were able to do learning walks. Meg invited us over. All the days are blurring. I think it was last Tuesday, Meg. But it was just really exciting to see all the different groups. And speaking of putting iReady data to use, I know that there was a heavy push in the beginning of the year just to use our in-district data to help figure out what should the targets be of certain groups, and it was really nice to see a lot of great things going on. So yeah, Meg, we'll have you back. I can't see you right now, but
I'm here. I'll definitely come back.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you all. You feel free to hop off. I think we're ready to move on with the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I continue?
Oh, you're not done? You only have 2
Can I just make one point too? I think, isn't MCAS going to be piloting a civics MCAS as well?
Spring.
So social studies is going to have its day in the sun. As a former social studies teacher, I'm very excited about that.
Yes, the plans are in the works.
I love it.
So just to close out the agenda, I just have a few comments. One, I want to thank the curriculum leaders for being here and the principals for being here. I also want to point out to the committee and anyone watching that this presentation is not just about MCAS. It's about curriculum coordination. It's about all levels. You're not going to attend or see any or many school committee meetings in the state where we have our director or principal of our early childhood pre-K here. But I think that that's a testament to, and it's intentional, right? And so we're making changes in curriculum with our youngest children to kind of give them the best start and opportunity to hit the ground running when they go into kindergarten. And I think that is a reflection on Shannon Blacker's work. The coordination of the work that's happening in elementary is really quite amazing. And the secondary work that is being done both between Amy McLeod and Meg Webb is really important. So the other piece that I'd like to bring up is just, some of the principals alluded to this, is that there are other things that make a difference for children while they're in school. And really at the heart of the test data that we're talking about is students growing and improving, right, from wherever they might start, right? And that this is a critical piece, from wherever they might start. And so it's our responsibility to meet students where they are. If you're an English language learner, and English is not your first language and you're new to our school system and you're learning English and the curriculum at the same time, we are going to support you to learn English and to learn the curriculum in a parallel timeline, but that might mean that your growth in certain curricular areas might not be linear, right? If you need additional support in areas. If you're an advanced learner, you might have an inclination and you might thrive in one subject area, but might need to do a little extra work in another area. These are the things that are critical, and I think it's really about relationships and allowing teachers to collaborate. But I want to thank Kara for the construction of this presentation and not having it just be about data and answering the simple questions. So Kara, thank you. And to the principals and curriculum coordinators, thank you as well. My last comment is just really about, I made a comment in our last school committee meeting about, with all that's going on in the world, if students or families need support, we would urge you to reach out to your principals or counselors. And I think that they're prepared to welcome that call and to support you in any way that we can. We know a number of our students and families are feeling particularly unsettled right now. And we think and we understand why, right? And that's warranted. And like we're talking about meeting students where they are academically, we also want to meet students where they are in regard to feeling safe and feeling able to participate and making sure that we're supporting in the best ways we can there. With the exception of that, that's it from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just have one comment, and then I'll turn it over to Stephen for a negotiations update. So at our last meeting, which was October 10th, during the school committee comments, I mentioned that students would visit Plymouth Pawtuxet as part of the Camp Borndale trip. And I made this assumption based on previous year's trips, but I was incorrect. This year, in lieu of attending Plymouth Pawtuxet, students will have the opportunity to attend 3 courses over the 2 days. And the fisherman boat is no longer available, I learned. It got sold, so that was it. So I just want to thank Sue Langlois, who sent me an email with the updated information. I'm not a 5th grade parent anymore, so I'm out of the loop. And our plan is to hopefully have a Camp Borndale trip coordinator and a Nature's Classroom trip coordinator come to a November meeting to share about the 2 trips, and because the trips would have already happened. So I just want to apologize for that incorrect information. Yeah, they are. Yeah. And the weather's been great actually for both those trips. So right.
Save our rain for Saturday.
I know, the weekends. Stephen, do you have a negotiations update?
I do. I can also give a Borndale update in that the weather is also awesome, and I do have a 5th grader there who has already dissected a shark. And I think his table won Sundays because they were pretty informed on the First Amendment. So overall, I think they're having a blast. So so in terms of teacher negotiation, we last met with educators last week and sort of shared proposals. I know that we're scheduled to meet again on November 1st. I know that we've received, as a school committee, a number of letters from people from the community just sort of urging for a fair and equitable contract for all involved, and I think that we're on the path to hopefully provide that. I think the subcommittee feels like we're making good choices. We have a good sort of offer in place, and it's hard to sort of say that while the teachers are absolutely there to advocate for themselves and for our students, we also have a sort of a responsibility to our community as a whole. And so we're sort of walking that path with giving our teachers the best contract that they could possibly have while making it sort of sustainable for the budget that we need to work within, and being good stewards of what we're charged with by our community of that budget. It's a significant portion of our town's budget, and our budget is significantly labor costs. So hopefully we get to a place where everyone sort of feels like they're valued and they like to work here. And we're hopefully going to close it out in the coming weeks. That's what we would like. So fingers crossed.
Thank you. So November 1st,
Well, I would also just say thank you to the teachers that came and commented, and also just thank you to the parents who communicated out also. It's good to know that people are invested, and it makes me feel like we'll be supported sort of at town meeting when we come to ask for the budget that's going to include some of the wage increases that we've proposed.
So the next meeting is November 1st, just to.
November 1st. Yep.
We've said it a couple times, so there'll be lots of candy. Budget items. Is Christine with us? Oh my goodness, hello. We haven't seen you.
Hello.
Hi, Christine.
Yes, we have one gift. Hi. Hi, Andy. Hi, everyone. So we have one gift to accept tonight from the girls soccer booster team to support 2 assistant coaches. I believe Stephen has a motion.
I do. I move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $3,300 from the Wakefield Girls Soccer Boosters Club for a stipend for 2 assistant soccer coaches for the 2023 fall season.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? No? Judy?
Ms. Lehman,
Yes.
Mr. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Fontanella,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Colleran,
Yes.
and Dr. Piscadlo.
Yes.
Thanks, Christine. Is that all? Was that your only item? Okay, thank you. Feel free to drop. Subcommittee reports. Finance and facilities. Does anyone want to speak?
Can I?
Oh, can you? Yes.
Is that
Go
okay?
right- Go right ahead.
So I had the good fortune to attend or be invited to an MSBA meeting ahead of the board meeting, which is happening tomorrow. And based on new funds and kind of new guidelines that are being released at the state level, the board of directors at MSBA will be voting tomorrow to increase our square footage caps, both for site work and for the building. And we should be hearing, which could positively impact the grant money in terms of the funds that are coming back to the town. So we will have more to report on that after the board meeting tomorrow. And so we will let the committee know straight away. But very positive meeting and kind of things are progressing well in that area.
Quick question. Is that in addition to the increases that were already applied last year?
That's correct.
That's great.
Was that what you discussed at the meeting?
That's what was discussed at the meeting. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, no, we didn't discuss that at finance.
No, that was new. No. I'm sorry. My mistake. My
You were
mistake.
speaking for finance
No,
and facilities.
no, and I just wanted to update facilities.
You saw the future.
For the high
So
school.
we knew this was coming.
My
That's
mistake.
news worth knowing now. Yeah. Tim gave us an update on sort of the fall transition for the schools, and some additional. We did a little bit of deep dive into stepper motors and air handler 1.5 horsepower motors, which was fun. Yeah, Tim is also being a good steward of his funds. He continues to capitalize on sort of his knowledge of where to get good pricing on parts and pieces that we need to sort of run our schools. So it was a good meeting.
Thank you. Oh, you're up next. Labor and personnel, Mr. Ingles.
I'm going to defer to my earlier comments.
Okay. Student services.
Yep, we met last week and we are meeting again next Monday. And we have been really diving into our discussion on school start times, really kind of doing the research and seeing what is possible with our school district and our buses and situations, and really trying to dive into who would be the stakeholders in our community. So we're very beginning stages of just kind of looking into it, but we're excited.
Yeah. Thank you. Policy and communications.
Yes, we met last Tuesday and we talked about homework policy. I thought we had a really good conversation. We talked about what the purpose of homework was. We talked about different philosophies of what homework is, but also talked about looking at having not having too much time for a student to be overwhelmed with homework. So we're looking at potential guidelines for homework by grade level. But yeah, I thought it was a good conversation that we'll continue to have.
With the outcome being a policy update, or?
Yeah, the reason why I brought it up in policy was if we were going to have, not that we have a formal homework policy in our policy handbook, but if we're going to have, guidance about amount of time for homework assignments, or obviously that's under our administrator's purview. But that we thought that was something, that was of, genuine interest, to the community and to us. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any liaison updates?
There is a CPAC meeting on next Wednesday, November 1st at 4 p.m. on Zoom. If anyone would like to join.
Thank you.
Yeah, the school building committee and permanent building committee met, and just to continue, each time you listen and you see new pictures and new designs, it's really, really exciting. They're continuing a lot of work. Talking about like some material differences that don't mean a whole lot to me, but they'll change like this material because it's a little more economical or will look a little different or things like that. And then even things like, what's visible in terms of like HVAC systems on the roof, and do you need things to be blocked, and how do you want that, and so. But things continue to move along, and that's wonderful news that you shared, Dr. Lyons. So that's exciting that some additional monies might be dedicated to the project. So it's just really exciting every time you see what's going on. So progress definitely being made.
For the Environmental Sustainability Committee, I was there. They had a meeting 2 weeks ago. They meet once a month on a Thursday. And we won't meet again before Halloween, but with Halloween comes pumpkin collection. So they will be hosting with Black Earth Forest, collecting pumpkins, and that will be November 8th at the 4 elementary schools. Any community member can go drop off their pumpkin to be composted. And then we're looking also, when I say we, I'm helping. Like, it's their initiatives, I'm just the liaison. Possibly collecting candy wrappers inside of the schools to recycle those. So there'll be flyers and we can share those out, but we just won't. By the time we meet again, which brings us to our next bullet item, the next school committee is November 14th. Those events will have already happened.
And I think for the pumpkins too, if I remember correctly from last year, they can't have like certain like paint on them and all that, glitter and all that stuff. So it can't be like a decorated.
Right. So if you try to drop your glitter pumpkin off, we'll bring it back.
Yes.
This Thursday, so next meeting, November 14th. This Thursday, we have the tri-board meeting, which will be on Zoom. And that's at 7 o'clock for all those who want to join. Listen in. And does anyone have any closing comments? Yes.
If anyone, I'm on my 9th year on the school committee, and if anyone has listened for more than 5 minutes, they know how proud I am of being a graduate of here. And it's really because of the incredible education I got, and vis-a-vis some incredible teachers. And the Wakefield Public Schools lost a member of that group. Trudy Delory, I miss Delory, she'll always be to me, was just an amazing educator. She was, when I was here, 7th and 8th grade, a health teacher and what was then the junior high. And I think it's just one of those people that just had a universal impact on young people over the course of her career here. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to the teachers I had here, and she is definitely one of them. Not only because of what you learned, I can't imagine teaching health in general, but never mind to 7th and 8th graders. And she did just a masterful job at it. But I think also being a mentor and an encourager, and for me, that continued even after graduating from here. And the neat thing about, and I don't know if you probably have had that experience too, now having children here and then being on the school committee, is you kind of renegotiate relationships you had, like they were former teachers, but now kind of colleagues, etc. And Trudy continued to be a great supporter of mine personally in my life, well after being here in 7th and 8th grade in the 1980s. So, but really, really sad to see that she finally lost her incredible battle. But for those that maybe didn't get to know her, she was not only an amazing teacher, a leader in the WEA, she also was a leader in town. She served as a member of the then Board of Selectmen. And her family is just a great Wakefield family. So it's a huge loss, I think, for our community and certainly the school system here. And her funeral is on Saturday, and look forward to joining others and her loved ones in wishing her well. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that loss, I think, for our town and for the Wakefield Public Schools. So just Yeah, so Trudy Delory was amazing. So just wanted to recognize her.
That was really nice. Thank you. I'm not from Wakefield, but
Yeah, she also chaperoned every night spot in the 90s. And so lots of memories from that as well. So night spot was a lot different back in the 90s than it is now. It was at the YMCA, the old YMCA and everything. So lots of memories from that from her as well. So very sad.
thank you sharing.
Two quick school-related community events. I'll repeat what Lauren said earlier. Tomorrow night at Landrigan Field, right here at the high school, 8 p.m., is your opportunity to see the Wakefield High School Marching Band. They should have had a huge show here in Wakefield last Saturday, but as Doug said, every Saturday has pretty much been a rain out in Massachusetts. And so they missed a huge opportunity, and they've also missed other shows due to weather. It is a free show. It's an opportunity to show your support for all their hard work. You'll see Lauren up there conducting away. And, in addition to the hard work of the students, it's amazing to see how hard our faculty works on these for the marching band as well. They're there till 9 p.m. many nights per week, working away with these kids, both here in Wakefield and at various schools. And as Lauren said, they're driving all the way down to New Jersey Thursday through Saturday. They return at 5 a.m. Sunday morning, and they're back at it for another show on Sunday. So that's how hard these kids work. And then Thursday night on the steps of the library is an opportunity to see lit up carved pumpkins that I believe the high school students put on. That's always a really fun community event to check out as well. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the strength of every community really relies on the investment that it puts in its public institutions. Obviously, we're on the school committee, we care about the public schools. But one institution that is connected with the public schools, really in every community, is the library. And, the BB Library had BBCon, this last Saturday. And just whenever I go to any event at the library, it is, I know we're not representing the library. I know I should be, I could be on the library committee. But they really do a phenomenal job. Whenever I'm in there, everyone that works there is just, is happy. They're helping. It's just a really, great pillar of this community. And I just wanted to, whenever I go in there, I just think about that. So.
You just reminded me that November 3rd is the library, I think, is part of the Wakefield 101. So I'll send you all an email if anyone's
Thursday,
around. I'll be at the table.
November 2nd, I think it is.
Is it the 2nd? I'll send it to you.
I think it's the 2nd.
Yeah, but the library is part of that. Okay. Stephen, do you have any closing remarks?
I have an agenda item that I was hoping we could put on a future agenda. I was wondering if we can talk about apps. I'd like to have a discussion around ST Math and Lexia and how they're used to sort of measure student achievements and what sort of outcomes we have from them. I think we're post COVID in this sort of heavy reliance on sort of Chrome and education apps for our students. I'd like to sort of see how we continue to use them as tools for our students.
Okay. Doug is jotting that down.
I am.
Any other agenda items? No? Okay. Do you have a motion?
I do. Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, October 24th, 2023.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'm seeing none. Judy?
Ms. Lehman?
Yes.
I actually am reading a list because the box is so tiny I can't read it. Mr. Ingles, except for you, Mr. Ingles. I can see you.
Yes.
Mr. Fontanella,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Colleran,
Yes.
and Dr. Piscadlo.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
double check with Amy on that, but